Certainly. Here's an uninterrupted, continuous summary of NewsRadio Season 5, Episode 5. The episode opens with a familiar chaos at WNYX as the staff is scrambling to prepare for an unexpected, last-minute broadcast. Something that has become a regular occurrence, but this time, the pressure is on Dave Nelson to lead the team through it smoothly, which is, of course, no easy feat, especially given the uncooperative nature of the staff. Dave, determined to show that he can finally handle the station's disorder, has a new plan. He insists that this time, they will adhere to a strict schedule, no room for improvisation. Everything is to be planned to perfection. But from the moment he introduces his idea, it becomes evident that this approach will be as much a test of his patience as it is of the team's willingness to cooperate. Lisa, ever the voice of reason, listens attentively but is clearly skeptical, knowing that Dave's attempts at control have failed before. While she supports him, she also knows that his need to dictate the team's actions is a weakness. Joe immediately rejects the idea, sarcastically claiming that spontaneity is the heart of WNYX's charm, not rigid schedules. Catherine quietly watches, knowing full well that Dave's plan is doomed to fail, but as usual, she's more interested in how the failure will play out so she can take advantage of the situation. Matthew, always eager to please, is enthusiastically on board with Dave's plan, convinced that this will be his chance to prove himself as a reliable team player. But his enthusiasm quickly turns into anxiety as he tries to follow every single detail of the schedule. Becoming more and more anxious about his performance, Jimmy, of course, is thrilled at the idea of a scheduled plan because it presents the perfect opportunity for him to introduce his next grand experiment in human behavior. He proposes a new element. They should add a random element to the schedule. He suggests they each take turns choosing a completely unrelated task or activity to do during work hours, just to mix things up, further complicating the already convoluted plan. Beth, as always, remains distant, offering occasional cryptic observations that suggest she sees through the entire charade, but she says little and lets the chaos unfold around her. As the team begins to follow the schedule, things almost immediately start to fall apart, with every attempt to maintain control leading to more frustration. Dave grows increasingly irritable as he tries to force the team to stick to the plan, but instead, it's clear that the very act of trying to control things is causing more problems than it's solving. Matthew's obsession with following the schedule perfectly results in him missing important details, making minor mistakes that pile up. Joe's refusal to follow the plan becomes more disruptive as he purposefully ignores the rules and does whatever he wants. Catherine, meanwhile, quietly steps in to take over the most important tasks without actually drawing attention to herself, ensuring that she's still in control of the situation without ever challenging Dave's authority openly. As the broadcast approaches, Dave's stress reaches new heights as he watches the team continue to flounder. Everything that could go wrong does go wrong. The schedule is ignored, tasks are forgotten, and the entire station seems on the verge of falling apart. But amidst the chaos, there's a strange sense of inevitability. It's as if this is the only way things were ever meant to unfold, and though Dave tries to maintain a sense of control, he eventually realizes that no matter how hard he tries, he can't force the team into working the way he wants. Lisa, who has been watching all of this unfold, finally confronts Dave about his need for control, suggesting that the problem isn't the team's lack of cooperation, but his unrealistic expectations of what they can achieve in such a chaotic environment. This moment of clarity makes Dave pause. For the first time, he's starting to understand that he can't control everything, and perhaps he doesn't need to. As the live broadcast begins, things continue to spiral, but there's a strange magic in the chaos, with everyone throwing their own unpredictable contributions into the mix, and despite the utter lack of coordination, the show somehow goes on. The broadcast is a mess, rushed, disorganized, and far from polished, but in its own way, it's a success. People tune in, And the content is so raw and unfiltered that it has a strange appeal, even if it's not what anyone intended. Matthew, still obsessively trying to follow the schedule, has a mini meltdown when he's paired with Joe to handle a segment. Their combined inability to follow the plan leads to a disaster, but somehow they pull it off. The segment is memorable for all the wrong reasons. Joe's irreverence and Matthew's awkwardness combine into something unintentionally entertaining. Catherine continues to quietly manage things behind the scenes, maintaining a sense of control without letting anyone know how much she's influencing the process. Beth offers a quiet, unsettling remark about how the chaos actually mirrors the station's true spirit, which no one fully understands but everyone feels, and Jimmy, as expected, is thrilled by the success of the broadcast, claiming that the unpredictable nature of the show is what makes it so compelling. Dave, at the end of the episode, sits back and reflects on the day's events, realizing that no matter how much he tries to impose order, the true essence of WNYX lies in the chaos, in the unpredictability, and in the team's ability to adapt to it. He acknowledges that the schedule was never going to work, and perhaps the best thing he can do as a leader is to embrace the chaos and let the team find their own way. The episode closes with a brief moment of quiet reflection, with each character in their own way coming to terms with the fact that control is an illusion at WNYX, and that the real strength of the team comes from their ability to survive and thrive in a constant state of unpredictability. The episode ends on a comedic yet poignant note as the staff goes about their business, with the familiar hum of dysfunction ringing through the office and a sense that while things may never be perfect, this strange, dysfunctional family is exactly where they belong. Continuing seamlessly from where we left off, the aftermath of the broadcast continues to echo throughout the station. Dave, having had a small but critical realization about leadership and the value of chaos, begins to shift his approach, albeit slowly. Instead of attempting to impose strict structures, he begins to take a more hands-off approach, allowing the staff to take on more responsibility and letting them find their own solutions in their usual unpredictable ways. However, this doesn't come without its challenges. Dave's natural inclination to micromanage still flares up now and then, but each time he does, it becomes increasingly evident that trying to control things only results in frustration for both him and the staff. Lisa, recognizing this shift in Dave, provides subtle support without directly confronting him, allowing him to make his own mistakes while gently guiding him through them. Her presence becomes more important in these moments, serving as a stabilizing force that keeps the team functional while Dave navigates the pitfalls of relinquishing control. Meanwhile, Joe remains his usual self, cynical and resistant to anything that resembles structure or order. But he finds himself grudgingly acknowledging that perhaps there's a strange method to the madness, even if he's not willing to fully admit it. The dynamic between him and Matthew continues to evolve, as their interactions become less about outright conflict and more about a reluctant partnership. Despite Matthew's overzealous enthusiasm for following every single instruction, Joe finds himself in situations where he inadvertently starts respecting Matthew's commitment, even if it's in the most frustratingly awkward way. As the episode progresses, Jimmy's experiments with chaos reach new heights when he proposes that everyone try to work on unrelated projects simultaneously to test their multitasking potential under pressure. Naturally, Dave, despite his earlier realization, feels obligated to entertain Jimmy's request, if only to see how the team will respond. Unsurprisingly, this new challenge leads to more mishaps. Catherine, ever the tactician, quickly adapts, keeping her focus on her own set of priorities while seeming to handle her responsibilities without breaking a sweat. She takes the opportunity to position herself as an even more indispensable figure within the station, subtly cementing her influence over the team. Despite her ability to navigate the madness, she remains an enigma to the others, who are unaware of just how much of the chaos is being steered by her quiet manipulation. Beth, as always, floats above the fray, providing minimal input but making remarks that sometimes carry surprising weight, offering cryptic reflections on the nature of the workplace that leave the others uncomfortable but introspective. She is the unspoken truth beneath the surface, her observations often ringing more true than any solution the others can muster. As the day continues, the team's collective efforts to handle the unpredictability lead to another broadcast, and despite all odds, the result is another hit, not because it adheres to the principles of good production or smooth execution, but because it feels real, raw, and entirely unpolished. Dave watches in disbelief, realizing that the very chaos he tried to rein in is, paradoxically, the secret to their success. In this moment, he begins to accept that the station's unique charm is in its flaws, and that sometimes the best leadership is knowing when to step back and let things unfold as they will. The episode concludes with the team gathering after the broadcast, each person reflecting on the day's events in their own way. Dave, for the first time, seems at peace with the notion that leadership at WNYX is not about control, but about guiding people through the chaos. Lisa offers him a quiet smile of approval, knowing that he's reached a breakthrough, while Joe, in his usual sardonic fashion, comments that it only took Dave 5 seasons to figure that out. Matthew, still trying to find his footing, takes the opportunity to declare that he's learned a valuable lesson about staying true to himself. Though his definition of true self remains as vague as ever, Catherine walks off, already planning her next move, while Beth says nothing. But her presence lingers as a reminder that the true power at WNYX lies not in the obvious chaos, but in the subtle ways people navigate it. Jimmy, ever the optimist, declares that the day's madness was another resounding success, reinforcing his belief that chaos is the key to unlocking creativity, while the staff moves on to whatever the next unpredictable moment will bring. The episode ends with a familiar note of uncertainty, but there's an unspoken understanding among the team. At WNYX, there is no perfect plan, no predictable outcome, just the ongoing dance between order and chaos, and the willingness to embrace it. The station, in its strange dysfunction, continues to thrive as unpredictable as ever, with each individual playing their part in the beautiful mess that is WNYX.